Shalom Yerushalayim. Zeu shari rashechem.
Shalom everyone, and nearly Shabbat Shalom. Today is Friday. Today is the 18th day of the Hebrew month of Tammuz. Today is July the 7th, and this Shabbat we're going to be reading a portion called Parashat Pinchas. Begins in the book of Numbers, chapter 25. The story of Pinchas, of Phineas, actually starts at the end of last week's portion. Last week we read about Balak who summoned Bilam, and both they tried to curse the people and to defeat them spiritually. Once that did not work, Balak decided he's going to try a different technique. And he sent the daughters of Moab, the daughters of Midian, to seduce the men out of the children of Israel, and to bring them to Baal Peor, the worst kind of idol worshipping. When Pinchas sees that, he is required to act in a certain way with an act of zeal. So he takes a sphere, he takes a kind of a sword, and he stabs one of the sinners at the end of last week's portion. He stabs him, and he stabs the woman with whom that person committed adultery. In our portion begins with a promise that God is giving Pinchas. And interestingly enough, after such an act of violence, really. I mean, it was an act of violence. I mean, he stabbed a person to death in front of all those men. That act actually saved the people and the plague stopped. But he stabbed him to death. I mean, it's an act of violence. After such a thing, to read about God rewarding Pinchas with a covenant of peace, it makes us raise an eyebrow, as we say in Hebrew. It makes us wonder, how could, a covenant of peace to someone who did that? I mean, we could have expected maybe something else, but no. God said he will be a priest. I mean, the priesthood will go to him, and all the priests later to come, they will come from his bloodline, and I will give him my covenant of peace. We know that in the Aaronic blessing, the main element in the blessing is peace, right? God will shine His face toward you, and He will give you peace. But we still feel a little bit uncomfortable with this idea. I mean, Phineas with peace. Afterwards we also see that in the book of Joshua, towards the end of it, when the 2.5 tribes, they go and they inherit on the east side of the Jordan River, and the people on the west side of the Jordan River, when they think that they have built an altar for idol worshipping, they sent Phineas, the high priest of that time, they sent him to talk to them about it. They didn't send Joshua. It wasn't Joshua the prophet. The people sent Phineas because they knew that he had the ability to act with zeal for the Lord, and they sent him, and that in itself was a statement in terms of their intentions. So why a covenant of peace to a person like that? And the answer is inside of the question. Necessarily a covenant of peace to someone like that. The covenant of peace is not just a reward, it is also a healing. Phineas had to do what he did. God approved it. God rewarded him, but he rewarded him with something which will also be the healing for that act. In order to act with zeal as he did, he had to work with from a very aggressive place in his heart. That place had to have the healing. When God says, I will grant him a covenant of peace, it's a covenant of peace for him to serve as a high priest later, but it's also a covenant of peace. That peace will be the healing for that place where he worked from, that place of violence and aggressiveness, even though it was for the sake of the Lord. May we all live to see how the curses are turning into blessings, and how everything that we get from him is a covenant of peace. Shabbat Shalom.